Part 4. They don't color within the lines. Hell, there are no rules here. We're trying to accomplish something. Thomas Edison. The uber-successful cannot stand being restrained by the rules that society and its institutions, from governments to religious organizations, seek to impose on them. They insist instead on playing by their own rules. The epitome of a rule breaker was Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great. Rule: do it the way it has always been done. When Alexander the Great invaded what is now Turkey in 333 BC, he found an ancient wagon with its yoke tied using such a mass of knots that it seemed impossible to untie. Tradition held to whoever unraveled the knot, known as the Gordian knot, was destined to become the ruler of all Asia. Instead of wasting time to untie the knot, Alexander drew his sword and sliced straight through it, thereby fulfilling the prophecy. History was written by rule breakers like Alexander. History of the automobile. Carl Benz. Rule: don't fix what ain't broke. The horse is here to stay, but the automobile is only a novelty, a fad. Horace Rackham. German engine designer Carl Benz ushered in the age of the automobile when in 1879 he patented the first gasoline-powered automobile engine. He followed this invention up with the creation of the first commercial automobile, the motor wagon. This flimsy, three-wheeled contraption was ridiculed by the traditionalists, who saw no practical application for it. Bertha Benz. Rule: respectable married women should stay at home, under the authority of their husbands. When women break the rules, they do it in style, or at least at the wheel of Benz. This was literally so in the case of Carl Benz's wife, Bertha. Frustrated at the lack of financial success of her husband Carl's fledgling automobile manufacturing company, Bertha embarked upon a daring publicity stunt that was the forerunner of those carried out by the likes of Sir Richard Branson a century later. Without telling her husband, and without his permission, or that of the authorities, on the 5th of August 1888, Bertha clambered onto the family motor wagon and drove it from her home in Mannheim to her parents' home in Pforzheim, a distance of over 100 kilometers, or 65 miles. She took her 2 minor sons with her, thereby possibly also breaking some rules about the endangerment of minors. Unassisted by modern-day aids, such as GPS or maps, Bertha found her way through the rural countryside, alongside wagon tracks. There were definitely no autobahns back then. As there were not yet any gas stations in existence, she had to stop at apothecaries, pharmacies or drugstores in small towns along the way to top up with the petroleum solvent that fueled the vehicle. She also had to make running repairs to it during the journey, and in the process invented the first brake pads. This happened when the wooden brakes fitted on the vehicle failed, and Bertha requested a cobbler to install leather pads in their place. When she safely arrived in Pforzheim after dusk, she notified her husband of her whereabouts by telegram. There were, of course, no cell phones, making the journey even more remarkable. Henry Ford. Rule: the automobile is a luxury that only the rich and famous can afford. Henry Ford had a clear vision of the future: to build a motor car for the great multitude. It will be so low in price that no man will be unable to own one. Ford achieved this vision by moving away from the labor-intensive assembly of vehicles by hand to the use of a semi-automated assembly line, ultimately bringing the sales price of the Model A down to $269. Before long, 60% of the vehicles on the road were Fords. We teach children to color inside the lines, and then expect adults to think outside the box. Frank Sonnenberg. Rule breakers. In modern times, another industry, the tech industry, has developed at a remarkable rate, thanks to the rule-breaking tendencies of the likes of Bill Gates. Bill Gates. We mentioned at the introduction of this series of articles that the uber-successful turn everything they teach at Harvard Business School on its head. Uber-successful Bill Gates may not have even stayed at Harvard University long enough to find out what the rules were before breaking them, as he dropped out to form the Microsoft Corporation before completing his degree. In dropping out, the rule that this habitual rule breaker flouted was, rule, get the very best university education possible. Gates was possibly at Harvard just long enough to figure out that the main purpose of such institutions is to teach you how to make into billionaires the millionaire shareholders of the company that employs you upon graduation. The secondary purpose is to enable you to earn an above-average salary once you graduate. The irony of Gates having dropped out is that Microsoft now looks to employ MBA graduates who, unlike Gates, stuck it out until they completed their qualifications. Rules broken today become norms tomorrow. Bill Gates. Richard Branson. Rule: you need to be to the manner born. Sir Richard Branson broke the stuffy convention of class-conscious England that you need to have the right background to succeed by having had a father who was a lawyer and a mother who was a flight attendant. In spite of this, he had gone on to own over 400 companies and have an estimated net worth of $4 billion US. It is fitting to let Branson have the last word on the topic. Breaking the rules and challenging convention is in the DNA of every successful entrepreneur. Doing things differently and solving problems with new, innovative, and fresh approaches are the very reason many startups are able to compete and sometimes outpace the established market leaders.